Hello YouTube. In this video we're going to talk about Microsoft Windows and Linux. What is an operating system and which is the best? That's right, we're going to go on about an age-old issue and question and argument that people have been having for quite some time. This is the one dealing directly with Windows versus Linux. So what is an operating system? An operating system, or an OS, is a program that is designed to run as a primary platform to control a computer system and give the end user an interface to be able to interact with said computer. Every computer has to have an operating system of some kind in order to function. Without the operating system to give control to the hardware commands to run and control them, the computer would just sit and do nothing because there is no instruction available to perform any function. Without the OS, majority of the hardware is non-functional because the drivers in the operating system instruct the machine how to interpret and use the hardware. So as you can see, the operating system is just as vital a key component as the hardware itself is. There are three different types of operating systems, which are Windows, Linux, or Unix. If you take into account that Linux is based off of Unix, then technically there really is only two different types of operating systems, Windows or Unix. Even Mac OS X is Unix based. So why should I choose Windows? Boy, isn't that the question. That's been up for debate by a great many people for many years. So, Windows is a good operating system that has been around for many years. There have been so many revisions and modifications made to the Windows operating system that it's hard to envision what version 1, 2, and 3 were even like. I still remember Windows 3.0, Windows 3.1, and Windows 3.11. I also still remember Windows 3.11 for Workgroups, which was the first one that really started incorporating networking. Today, the two common Windows OS versions are 7 and 10, with Windows 10 being the newest that just released in 2015. There is a Windows 8 and 8.1. We're not going to talk about those on here because what a flop. They were worse than Vista. Because of the fact that Windows has been around for so long and is so common among computers and servers, there's a massive amount of support for software that is compatible with the operating system. This means more support for hardware applications and games. And this also is very true in the enterprise environment. There is a massive amount of support for enterprise software. The largest majority of applications for both personal use and enterprise use is designed around Windows operating systems. Windows also has the advantage of simplicity. It's very easy to install and easy to use and navigate. Why should I avoid Windows? Well, there's another interesting question. Windows can become a bit unstable over time, but by design, there are several things in the OS that get modified as applications are installed, uninstalled, as well as even applications that get updated. This causes eventual corruption in the registry that causes the system to become unstable and start crashing. Too many application developers also have a habit of creating their own version of core OS files, especially DLL files. And rather than using the operating system's files, they use their own DLL, as they get a bright idea that with the installer, they should overwrite the OS file with their own. This leads to OS corruption and instability. Thanks a lot. Quit using those. If you're going to include the DLL, make sure it duplicates the freaking thing and puts it elsewhere and doesn't overwrite the OS version. Also, make sure that when your program stops, it unloads your custom DLL, so that way the OS doesn't become unstable and crash. Stop causing blue screens. The other problem is security. Windows has been around so long, and in order to use the computer effectively as a home user, all accounts are admin accounts. Not good. This makes it very easy for attackers to know what the vulnerabilities are, and they can exploit to compromise the system for either stealing information or use to attack others at a later date and time. There are many updates to the OS, and the OS updates are only for Microsoft products. The other disadvantage with OS updates is sometimes you just get done installing an update and smack, here's another freaking update. Windows is also very expensive. Generally, you're going to pay around $150 for a cut down version of the OS, or roughly about $300 for the full operating system. Yep, that's craptastic. Why should I choose Linux? Linux has actually been around a lot longer than most people realize. It was built off the Unix operating system by Linus Torvald. Linux exists under the GNU open source license, which means anyone can use the code and modify it, and the operating system is free to use. There are several different flavors of Linux known as distributions, with the three most common used in home computers being Ubuntu, Fedora, and Linux Mint. Linux has become much easier to install and manage, with new age graphical desktop environments getting much and much better. The graphical desktop environment, better known as a DTE GUI, which GUI is graphical user interface, they're starting to become a lot simpler and a lot easier to navigate in Linux. So really, there's not a massive amount of difference. There's a massive amount of software and support out there for these three distributions, and it's growing more and more every day. These three operating systems, along with many other distributions of Linux, are very stable operating systems, very secure operating systems. The security risk of Linux is far less than that of Windows. The reason being is because in Windows you have the elevated user account known as administrator. In Linux it's known as root. And if you're dumb enough to run everything as root, you're going to get what you deserve. Most viruses that exist out there for Linux can't do anything unless ran or executed as root. Granted, yes, there are some exploits in some operating systems that allow them to elevate the privilege themselves. Don't give them the key immediately if they happen to get a hold of your account, because damn, you're going to look back and go, oops, I really just gave them everything. Yes, you did. With the newer graphical user interface, or GUI, and the X desktop environment, or DTE, Linux has become just as easy to use as Windows. By the way, X Windows is nothing more than the daemon that runs, that actually executes and brings up and loads your graphical interface, which is just like Windows. The support by larger software manufacturers and the gaming community is growing for Linux as well, which means one day Linux might become the primary operating system on home computers rather than Windows if Microsoft isn't careful. Why? Well, that answer is obvious. It's free and it comes packed with all kinds of software that's already set up in the image. When you do the install, whenever you log in, you've already got your browsers, you've already got various editing tools, you got various office tools, all kinds of stuff. And then you can go turn around and download thousands more for free. Yeah. The overall design of Linux and why things are separated the overall design of Linux and the way things are separated makes the operating system super stable and much more difficult to crash. Unlike Windows, everything in Linux is segmented. Windows is designed where everything's incorporated into everything for a good reason. I mean, it makes it a lot easier to use. It makes it easier to program for. With Linux, you don't have to worry about a single program crashing that wipes out the whole freaking operating system, unlike Windows. So, is it common to see something similar to the Windows blue screen of death in Linux? No. OS updates actually update all the software in the system rather than just the OS, and most software for it is free. Windows updates only updates Microsoft products. Yep. So why should I avoid Linux? Well, there's a lot of things in Linux that you might have to do a lot of research on to figure out how to do it. The operating system can be a little bit more difficult to figure out and learn, and it can be much more difficult to find certain programs that you need for various aspects of works that will interface with Windows-based applications. Troubleshooting, you're going to be doing a lot of research to figure out how to take care of a problem. So which is better? This is a stupid question. Honestly, both have their strengths and both have their weaknesses. From a security aspect, Linux is a bit better, actually far better. There's a whole lot less stuff out there that can do anything to Linux. From a software availability aspect and ease of use, Windows tends to be a whole lot better because, let's face it, the majority of the software out there is designed and developed around the Windows operating system. The actual desktop environment in Linux has intentionally been designed to look close to that of Windows, which has made navigation a lot simpler, but some things are not as easy to find or as intuitive as what Windows is. There is no better operating system. That is entirely a choice based on personal preference and what you intend to do with the system. This is also the same with Mac, which is Unix-based OS like Linux. Good luck on picking an OS and have fun computing. So let's do a direct comparison. We got Linux and Windows. Linux, free price. GUI desktop environments getting easier and easier to navigate. Lots of support. Lots of free software. Free version upgrades. Updates all software at once. Windows tends to be a bit expensive. The GUI desktop environment is extremely easy to navigate. Stupid simple to install the operating system. They've pretty well taken all the guesswork completely out of it with the newer ones, especially Windows 10. It's kind of just like you tell it where to install and that's it. You walk away. It does everything else on its own. Lots of support. Lots of software. Some actually free. There's quite a bit of free software out there for Windows. Updates only the Microsoft software. Woo. One really major bad point. Yeah. I'm telling you, it's personal preference, not the operating system. So for the whole debate of Linux versus Windows, how about we do it this way? You can dual boot, which means you can have Linux and Windows on the same system. If you have a personal preference of using Linux for certain things, boot it in Linux. If you have a personal preference for using Windows for specific things, boot it in Windows. There's also another alternative. It's called a virtual machine. You can get VirtualBox or pay for VMware and set up a VM in either Windows or Linux. Turn around and run a separate computer operating system inside your system as it's running the primary operating system. So you get the best of both worlds. I'd like to thank you for your time on this presentation. This information is out there for absolutely everyone. As always, watch, like, and share, and have a great day.